I think that finally takes us to item 20. It does. Okay, Domain Awareness Center, item 20. We are finally getting to this item.
Item
Thank you,
20 is
everybody,
to
for
adopt a
waiting.
resolution authorizing the city administrator to award a contract for Phase 2 of the Domain Awareness Center project implementation in an amount not to exceed $2 million. Select a vendor from the pool of vendors that responded to the request for proposals titled City of Oakland, Port of Oakland Joint Domain Awareness Center. And there are 61 speakers on this item.
Okay, so should we just call the speakers? All right, fine. So, Madam City Clerk, would you begin calling the names of the public speakers on this Domain Awareness Center item?
JP, Miguel Vargas, Marina Cuxo, Michael Hayden, Yusuf Hunafa, Mary Madden, Joshua Daniels, Ryan Rising, Parker Higgins, Mark Burdett, Celie Quest, Harold Gaskill, Mindy Stone, Dante Kano, Rhodey Orbitz, David Colburn, Nimbus Gohausen, Ace Tex, Ryan Jarvinen, Joshua Smith, Edward Snowden, Anwar Adam, Edville, Yolanda Wang, Brian Geiser, Joshua Smith again, Heather Mastro, Vicki Knox, Cam Gomkin, Paul Young, Steve Rhodes, Cynthia Morse, and I'm going to stop there for now.
Okay, so if your name was called, you can line up to speak, and I just want to go over the rules we have for speaking. So all night long, this has been 1 minute only. If you have somebody who is willing to cede their minute to you, please tell me before you start, so we don't have to do this whole thing in the middle of your speech. Also, typically, when we cede time, you get half the time of the person who's ceding. But if one person cedes time to you, I'll give you 2 minutes. Yeah. Would you? Okay. And I'm chairing this meeting. Thank you very much. So, all right, come forward and let's hear the first speaker.
Hello, I'm Celie Quest. I am here, I'm queer, and I know lots of people who are against a domain awareness center who also vote. Homeland security will happen through funds and labor focused on providing for our energy needs without fossil fuels immediately to mitigate further climate change. Oakland government can take a risk in modeling that it will trust residents won't end up feeling safer if the DAC comes in. Oakland has a chance to instead model an urban center providing for education, jobs, generating clean food, water, housing, transportation, energy. When people's basic needs for health and respect are met, just civic relationships prevail. When they're neglected at the expense of collecting more surveillance data, no one ends up safer, certainly not the middle class. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good.
Go ahead.
All right. My name is Rhodey Orbitz. I'm a resident of West Oakland. I'm going to play a hypothetical here for a second. Consider I'm a terrorist. I don't want to hurt everybody. Let's say the easiest way to do this would be, say we have all of our security systems and they're all in one place. Like if I wanted to attack the city of Oakland, well, it's great now because the Domain Awareness Center ties together our fire department, ties together our police department, and these other two people that will man the center. So I think the most ridiculous thing also is that you plan to, you don't have funding yet to figure out who's going to staff this. So you've talked about maybe the policemen will staff it, maybe the firefighters will staff it, maybe we'll have 2 people staffing it. I'll tell you right now, there's no number of people you can afford that will protect this from people attacking it, people hacking it. What I'd like to say is that if this system goes up, it will be hacked, and hopefully the person will tell you that they hacked it. So you can make it better and you can make it safer. But unfortunately, what probably will happen is the person will hack it. They might not tell you that I can go in, I can, maybe I can stalk my partner, maybe I can stalk one of you. You can't build this up. You can't build this securely. If you think that you understand this problem, you're wrong. It's not your fault, though, because this is the job that you guys do. The job that I do is security, privacy, and our security. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Nationally, we have a lot of surveillance programs, some of which we've only recently become aware.
Can you give me your name, please?
Edward Snowden. So there are a number of programs federally that have failed to protect us. Before the September 11th attacks, there were call data surveillance that started in at least February 2011. And time again, they failed to stop any terrorism, which is a justification for the system. Instead, what they're used for is things like catching General Petraeus having an affair or committing economic espionage. So if you want private contractors who work with the NSA and whatnot to blackmail Oakland businesses, build the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snowden.
Hi, it's Dante Cano. I'm here to speak on the Awareness Center. All right, so obviously the Awareness Center, in my opinion, has other agendas. They're being proposed by, coming by each city hall meeting to propose a different, like we can sense this, we can sense that, we can sense that. I think the bigger picture here is that obviously the DHS has a lot of interest in this in this awareness thing. I also want to bring up London for a variety of different reasons when it comes to surveillance. In London, where most of the surveillance is located, it's mostly in the Muslim population. So I also wanted to relay that to just Oakland in general, and I think that there's other agendas. I also think that yeah, it's ridiculous, and people who the Awareness Center is eventually it's how do I say this? All right. Long story short, yeah, I don't think it's yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Next.
And aesthetics on there, I think I was the one you were trying to pronounce.
Say it again.
Aesthetics, it's AESTETIX. Yeah, thank you.
For some reason, I cannot understand almost anything anybody's hearing.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, so pull it up to close to your mouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try it now. Eat the mic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm aesthetics once again, and thank you all for being here. I think some of you guys went home early, I understand. So I just wanted to say that I'm a computer security professional, and I'm interested in an impact assessment regarding the human rights, freedom of expression, and privacy. So I just got 5 quick points. First, how are we auditing the vendors? How often are we auditing them? And are they reporting to City Council or to the public? And within that, who has access to the data that we'll be collecting, and why do those people have access? Will I be, as a constituent, will I be able to query all the data about me? How long is the data retained for? And how is it secured? And finally, and really important, what happens if there's a data breach? Number 3, the NSA revelations have driven business away from the U.S. How do we know this won't drive business away from Oakland? Number 4, will this make all Oakland citizens suspects by default? And number 5, just to reiterate, will we be performing a human rights impact assessment? So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Ryan Rising. I'm having my time seated also by Floyd Smith. So if I got 2 minutes, thank you. So this isn't what I came here to talk about initially, but I do have to talk about the decision-making process that's happening in this room. The fact that well over 100 people came to speak out against the Domain Awareness Center tonight, something that affects everyone in this entire city. 75 people actually registered to speak. Most of them had to go home so they could get up to wake up for work in the morning. And so they're not able to speak right now. And so what's happening is that we're not having a truly participatory democratic decision-making process happen around something that's going to affect every single person that walks, drives through, or uses social media in the city of Oakland. And that's a huge problem. And why that's a problem is because if there was a truly participatory democratic decision-making process happening around this issue, you would hear that there's a consensus opposing this system in the city of Oakland. And to keep all those people out in the rain and the cold till midnight so that a decision like that can be swept below their eyes by a few people sitting in a room making decisions for them is hugely problematic. This is something that's going to affect everybody in the city. Luckily enough, that doesn't have to be the argument that I stand on, because it was published today that all the other contractors that are being looked at have the same exact problem that the contractor that was just dropped from the City of Oakland's RFP had. And so the article that you all can read, and it details how all these companies are involved, states that a background check on each of these companies show that all of them have obtained nuclear weapons-related contracts from branches of the U.S. military or for the U.S. Department of Energy. So the biggest piece of this is that this needs to be slowed down. A lot of people want it to be dropped immediately, and I agree with them for the most part. But stronger than that is the fact that so many people are against this, and there's not enough room for a real decision-making process and communication process to take place, that y'all need to be the ones to decide to slow this down right now so that everyone's voice can be heard and everyone can come to the table on an issue that's going to affect everyone in the city. And if that doesn't happen, then this is an illegitimate decision-making process.
President Kernahan, council members, Paul Young with the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce comes before you in many of your hearings, Public Safety Committee, dozens of hearings, and speaks out in favor of public safety. And we have spoken out before in favor of this Domain Awareness Center, recognizing that if not all, nearly all of the data is collected in public places where none of us have a reasonable expectation of privacy. Now, a number of the concerns I've heard tonight sound entirely reasonable, and I hope they are things that the city will take into account about how the data would be stored and used and accessed by others. But in a city that faces the public safety challenges that we do face, having cameras on the street that protect citizens and can help us to look into crimes later is something that the Chamber has supported, and we thank you for your consideration of that measure tonight. And we thank you also for the many public hearings you hold on this issue and on others. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Hi, my name is Parker Higgins, and I've had time ceded to me by Mark Burdett.
Give me your name one more time.
Parker Higgins.
Go ahead.
I work for the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a civil liberties public interest group focusing on technology issues like privacy from mass surveillance and government transparency. On the Domain Awareness Center generally, and on the issue raised tonight, my organization has deep concerns about the proposals before the Oakland City Council. The DAC is an expensive and unrealistic proposal that threatens to grossly invade the privacy of good people across Oakland without providing commensurate benefits. A Senate report from last year found that with other so-called fusion centers in the DHS, and there are 70 of these across the country. This is a quote from a Senate report. It produces predominantly useless information and, again, a quote, a load of crap. That's a quote from the Senate report. At the same time, following the principle that a mosaic reveals much more than a single tile, the hundreds of correlated data feeds threaten to create what a former senior policy advisor to the FTC calls a database of ruin on the people of Oakland. Benjamin Franklin famously admonished that those that would trade essential liberties for a little temporary security do not deserve either. Oakland is poised to give up the former without even getting the latter. All this is to say, the bar for selecting a contractor must be set extremely high, and overlooking issues like the fact that all current proposals may be ineligible under existing law, or the issue that the privacy costs have been bolted on after the fact, is unacceptable. At the same time, the public has had little opportunity to understand the scope of the Domain Awareness Center, and much less weigh in. One journalist has had an open FOIA request to the DHS for months on the grant and still has not yet gotten an answer. I think the facts are clear that the DAC is bad for Oakland, and I'm joined by dozens of residents here that agree. But at the very least, the City Council owes it to itself and to the people to give these issues the time and consideration they are due and not simply pick from unsatisfactory options to beat a funding deadline. At a time when mass surveillance is getting unprecedented national attention, it is unconscionable for Oakland to push these plans forward without robust citizen participation. Thank you.
Next, come on up.
Marina Cuxo, District 3. It's difficult to see how we can move forward with the resolution proposed by city staff, given the recent revelations that almost all, if not all, of the contractors that responded to the RFP and that would be considered under the resolution have potential problems with Measure T. So it seems like the only reasonable solution is to move forward with a new request for proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name's Jonathan Watts, and I live in Oakland. Yeah, I would just like to ask you guys to question who you're going into business with. I mean, in 2002, the Department of Homeland Security was created by George Bush and Republicans in general, and I imagine since this is Oakland, most of you are Democrats, but you're willing to accept money from this department to, mitigate some of your problems. You know, Oakland has a police issue as far as funding. We're understaffed, and I understand that. I'm pretty sure many people in Oakland understand that. But what are we selling? What are we selling the people of Oakland instead of security? Or are we giving them security and comfort while taking their information and putting it into some sort of national database? There's no guarantees on this. Thank you.
My name's Magdalena Kazmierczak. I live in Oakland. I don't want to live in a city that's testing this giant surveillance system because I believe it's going to be used to criminalize normal existence. I think that people who say no one has anything to fear unless they're doing something wrong are deluding themselves, because these tools of surveillance are going to be used to enforce laws that probably don't even exist yet. And once a system like this is in place, it's likely to only grow and not to be dismantled. Or that's what I've seen and what my experience has been. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Madden. I have time ceded to me by David Colburn and Carter Levin.
Okay, 3 minutes. Are they still here?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Madden. I would like to thank Oakland's anti-nuclear activists from the year 1988 for throwing a wrench in the city's spying plans. This is my third time speaking to you to ask you not to build this mass surveillance system. Once again, you've kept everyone waiting until the wee hours of the night and dwindled out opposition to make your decision to spy on everyone in Oakland and everyone passing through. Councilmember Brooks, you weren't here the last time I spoke. I shared a UK study that showed that surveillance unfairly targets people of color, women, and the poor, but your colleagues didn't care. The study showed that black people were 2.5 times more likely to be surveilled than whites. When black people were surveilled, they were surveilled for longer than whites. Homeless people were subjected to intense surveillance, and 1 out of 10 women were targeted for voyeuristic reasons by male camera operators. The Domain Awareness Center also targets the children of Oakland. In July, Council made an amendment that approval by this body would be required before the 700 school surveillance cameras could be piped into the DAC. In October, Renee Domingo told the New York Times that there are still plans to add this child surveillance to the DAC. You probably think the DAC will only be used in emergency situations and not used on protests. In an article for Public CEO, Renee Domingo wrote that DAC would in fact be used for protests. She said, and I quote, "Oakland's long history of civil discourse and protests adds to the need. The Oakland Emergency Operations Center has been partially or fully activated more than 30 times in the past 3 years to respond to large demonstrations and protests." So there you have it. Renee Domingo is working with the Department of Homeland Security to implement their goal of including fire departments in the domestic intelligence community. The Homeland Security Act of 2002 mandates a formal information sharing process between the DHS and fire departments. If you continue with this, you personally are fulfilling Homeland Security plans to turn our brave firefighters into spies. How much more clear can it be? The DAC will be used against marginalized populations and anyone who speaks out against injustice, and the DAC turns the Oakland Fire Department into spies. I ask you to stop the mass surveillance of all people of Oakland. Please do not do the bidding of the Department of Homeland Security.
Thank you. Before you start, I need a motion to extend the meeting past midnight.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded by McElhaney and called by consensus.
I'm abstaining on behalf of my babysitter.
Oh, okay. All right. Ma'am, you may go ahead.
I'm speaking, Alana Green let me have her time because she had to leave because you took too long to get to this. I'm from Oakland, and my name is Aisha Mohammed. So it seems that you think that we are all fools. Your armed goons murder people from very specific communities over and over and over, and then get a vacation. And you say that they do this in the name of safety. The state criminalizes Muslims who merely even speak about self-determination, and you say it's about safety. Now you want to deepen surveillance in the name of safety. No one's going to buy that. Policing and surveillance always go hand in hand with development and gentrification. We can see your maps on the city website. Whenever you have gang injunctions, whenever there's increased policing, the maps match up with what the developers want to develop. It's really clear. It's not a secret. You know that. We know that. We're not stupid. Policing and surveillance always targets black and brown communities, especially those without capital. It targets Muslims, and it targets dissent.
Thank you.
I'm not finished.
Well, you wrap it up because you got 1 minute, which you just had.
Thanks.
Hold on. What is your name? Did you have a card? Okay, you got a minute.
That's okay. I think just 1 minute will be fine. So the point is, you can't protect your racist corporate empire with more cameras. You can't protect your racist corporate empire by arming more goons. And you especially can't do that when there's no authority, no validity to your authority, and you have no moral ground for what you're doing. This isn't about safety. We all know this isn't about safety. And I'm not making any threats for the record, but I am saying that this is the nicest way we're going to demand this. People aren't going to be happy about this. There are a lot of people. We're not the only representation of the people that are angry about this. A lot of the people that are going to be the angriest, the people that you're going to see out in the streets and you're not going to be able to control, are the people that are too busy trying to survive, the people that are targeted the most. Those people are going to be out in the streets and you're not going to be able to handle them. That's what happens. That's the historical arc of empire. And to all of you, who's the more important audience, we should all be thinking about what we're going to do when these people don't listen to us and they vote to pass it. Because they don't have authority.
Hey, Kaplan, is that beer?
Hi, my name is
Next speaker, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Gary Jin. I live in apartment room 220, 634 15th Street, Ridge Hotel. I have to be so specific about this because I too have been the subject of surveillance that was actually conducted by people, not drones or anything, but that got me kicked out of Ohlone and City College. That's a separate issue, but what I'm here to talk about is that there are concerns that the Domain Awareness Center will further erode due process by including detention facilities in that center. There's so few oversight even at this level that this had to be brought to the awareness, because there is a very real concern that the Department of Homeland Security will start basically picking people off of the street, and basically they won't even have the luxury of even seeing the Oakland Police Department, the inside of an Oakland Police Department jail.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tom Fitzpatrick. I got two other people's time things, so I think I get through this. All right.
You have to tell us who their names are.
Oh, John and Jesse Chan.
You have those? Are they here?
Well, he is.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to start off with a proverb, and that's that a lazy man ruins nothing. you're better off doing nothing in this case. And I know that you have a reputation and you want it to look like you're busy solving these problems. In this case, you're going to open up a Pandora's box that's going to be very difficult to dismantle once it's made and shown to be inept. I also want to point out the problems of merging databases. You'll likely go over your budget. Software engineers tend to run the show because nobody else can do their job and make all the decisions for you. So once you put it in their hands, they're going to be running the show and you're going to run out of money. After 3 years, it's going to be your responsibility to keep paying for this thing. You're not going to be able to put more staff into these centers to actually take in all these calls of what you're analyzing. So the only real way to solve these kind of problems are social norms. If you isolate everybody, there's no way that we can keep up a culture that actually makes things safe. If you really want to solve these problems, you don't need to throw technology at it to look busy. Just take police officers out of their cars and put them back on the streets where they can interact with people on a humane level. Thank you.
Hi, so this is not the first time that I've come before you to speak. I have come up here and read to you the Bill of Rights, and it seems evident that you were not paying attention then, so I doubt you'll pay attention if I do it again now. Once again, you have decided to introduce a proposal to violate the civil liberties of the people of this city in the hopes of preventing crime, and I can only assume also silencing dissent. The DAC, which would surveil everybody in Oakland, whether they live here or not, will absolutely have a chilling effect on the free speech expressed by people here. It will absolutely have an effect on people's ability to express dissent and have their grievances addressed. The Oakland Police Department has already overreached their bounds by using essentially surveillance photos to get an activist fired for attending an anti-police demonstration. So I fail to see how you can possibly enact any protections for the other people who live in this city when you're going to surveil them endlessly as well. I don't understand how you can allow the Oakland Police Department to abuse the things that they already have access to and want to give them more toys when their crime solution rate is next to nil. And I also fail to see how cameras are going to stop crime, because last I checked, cameras are inanimate objects that don't actually have the ability to stop people in their actions. I'm sorry, I'm able to tell time too. I'm not done talking yet. So cameras are also unable to stop crime, making this even less sensible. I don't understand how pouring millions and millions of dollars into surveillance of citizens in this city is going to be more effective at stopping crime than pouring those same millions and millions of dollars into social services would. We have been closing schools. We are not providing children with the educations that they deserve, nor are we providing them with access to the arts, access to good food. You know, Libby Schaff made a joke about her babysitter not wanting to be there past midnight, but how many people couldn't come here tonight because they don't even have access to childcare? So many people do not.
Miss, you've gone on now almost 3 minutes, so could you please stop talking? We can stay here all night, that's fine, but, you know, we've held other people to that. Do you have someone who'd like to cede time to you?
Nobody needs to cede time to me, thank you.
Would you like to be escorted out?
I'm sorry, are you threatening me?
I'm asking you.
Are you threatening me?
I am saying if you continue
Madam Chair, she
to
has
keep
someone feeding her
talking,
time.
we will ask you to be escorted out. Thank you. Okay, good. All right. Next speaker, please.
I'd like to thank the council for playing their cognitive role.
Hello? Yeah. I'd like to thank the council for playing their cog role in our corporocratic, bureaucratic bureaucracy called democracy here in America. I understand the clear class distinctions here as you sit on high behind mahogany barriers hanging local, state, national, and global government flags of power. I'm no big property owner, no bigwig bureaucrat, no community organized organization representative, so my social status affords me only a minute instead of 5 like others of status here. How can you represent me when you don't return or even answer my calls and you deny meetings with you? The Domain Awareness Center is just the latest in government fears of citizen uprising. I hope you sleep well at night with your conscience.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nora Corey, and Susan Harmon has ceded her time. So tonight I would like to appeal to Councilwoman McElhaney and Kaplan, who were the only 2 councilwomen that voted against Urban Shield, which was also a travesty of justice, that we're beginning to see a pattern here due to funding by federal priorities that are coming to Oakland, that are trying to use Oakland as a testing ground for their weapons manufacturers and their war games. And they're using you all as a tool for implementing these policies. So in order to create a police state and a surveillance state, by showing clearly that there is no evidence, such as in New York, where they surveilled Muslims and there's no evidence to support what they're doing is yielding any results in solving crimes or preventing them. Second, what is clear is that the companies and the human rights abuses that they are engaged in are well documented. And so how can you in good conscience take these steps to continue these policies when you see that it does nothing to solve crime, to hinder, okay. So if we invest in healthcare, in education, in social services, these are the only things that are going to reduce crime. And this is something that you could do. And if you had any moral standing, I think Oakland could be a representation for the rest of the country to take different steps in order to solve crimes, which we do see are a problem, and there are ways to solve them, and that's not by surveilling and police. It's by investing in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miguel Vargas. I have ceded time from Joshua Daniels. Hello. So this center, you do not know what this center is going to be capable of. No one does. It's being built in secret with no public input. You heard earlier about the news article that came out today that the remaining DAC RFP contractors are all involved in nuclear weapons. That should tell you something about this project. What this is really about is these military contractors bringing their war profiteering home. Washington, D.C. cut our Head Start program. They cut food stamps. But money for military contractors keeps flowing. You can stop this. There's also information coming out that Santana actually knew that SAIC violated our nuclear ban, but she was trying to get a waiver for SAIC. Oakland has a long tradition of taking principled stands against war and these military contractors. Some of you spoke eloquently against Urban Shield a few weeks ago, but then Santana went behind your backs and put out a city letter defending Urban Shield. Staff has been trying to figure out how to get around Oakland's principles, like this nuclear issue. They're trying to get a war profiteer to surveil us. It's time to stop this. You can kill this right now. I want to talk about Dan Kalb's privacy policy amendment. The amendment is flawed. The policy is going to be written by the same people that didn't think we needed a privacy policy to begin with. Director of Homeland Security, Renee Domingo, is not required to consult the community on this policy. She doesn't have to talk to the ACLU for any input. She's just going to come up with this policy and present it to council for a vote. And after the policy is in place, there won't be any oversight over the policy. How are we going to know that the policy is being followed? When public records requests are made, we're told that these things are secret. So the time to kill this is now. I urge you to vote against the DAC.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? Hello, my name is Anwar Adem. I just want to say, about surveillance. Ms. Brooks, how would you like it if people say that every Sunday you walk around the lake around 6 o'clock with you and your friend or your sister? Kernigan, how about you liking to stop at the taco truck on 2nd Avenue or whatnot? Mayor Kwan, you like to pose pictures on Saturday evenings like this. That's your favorite pose. City Administrator Diana Santana, if she was here, we could talk about her lunchtime rides at 12 o'clock in the afternoon with Howard Jordan, Chief Howard Jordan at the time. But this is surveillance and like going into people's privacy, and we could do a lot better if we go into our community and what's been going on. We send a lot of people to the prison system out here. We need to invest in, put that money into that if we want to stop crime. That's the truth. I'm telling you, because we need to look at the prisoners that's been coming out and doing part of what they need to do in the community to uplift our communities in different ways that y'all don't understand. And that's all I'm saying, is that we need to invest in a different aspect of what we need to be doing. And like I say, your privacy could be easily like being shown right there, and I'm just one person. Now, if we put eyes on everybody out here, imagine how sick that would be. Imagine how much more we could find out about what you guys are doing. The conversations. After I walked off from you, Ms. Kwan, I wonder what that conversation would have been with those two camera people. How you felt after that. Tell me. Get a job. All right, peace.
Hi, my name is Nimbus Gohausen.
Get closer to the mic.
Hi, my name is Nimbus Gohausen. I'm a data engineer, and I work on systems not too dissimilar from the one you're proposing. So I can make some educated guesses about what its capabilities are and what it's for. And I can tell you it's not about solving violent crime. If you wanted to solve violent crime, it's not rocket science. You hire more police officers, you investigate homicides, you expand the crime lab to actually process the backlog of evidence you already have there. And it's not like you can't get this information anyways. The systems, the cameras are on, you can go and collect the data now, and I'm sure the police are already doing this. If you know a homicide occurred somewhere, you can go and get evidence for any system that might be covered by this DAC, and you can get the evidence, and I'm sure you have it, but you're not doing anything with it. This system is not for that. This system is for aggregating, centralizing a lot of data and performing analysis on it so you can track anyone that enters it, and on demand, if you take an interest in someone, figure out their history for everything they've ever, everywhere they've been, as soon as you switch the system on to, whenever you want to go and check them out. So I ask you guys, are you comfortable with your family and your children being tracked by such a system? Are you comfortable with other people having access to data about where your family is and throughout the day, going around the city? And you think this system is going to be operated by professionals, right? They're going to go and check it out, and it's going to be all above board. But this is the SAIC. They mess up everything they work on. And if you think this is going to get done for $2 million, I could build this thing for $2 million if you'd like, but I don't really think it's good. Okay.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
My name is Becca Town, and I don't want you guys to quietly listen to me. I want you to actively listen and critically think about what I have to say and what those before and after me have said. I have some questions and comments I'd like you all to take home and think about. Please. What good does full surveillance of Oakland do? Will it stop a single violent criminal from committing that crime? No, we know that. Statistics show no decrease in violence where DAC systems are implemented. Isn't that what Oakland needs, not $7 million spent to do nothing to decrease violence? It's time to look at your hearts. What are you doing with the power you hold? Implementing unprecedented surveillance in this city will help no one except those profiting from the prison industrial complex, making more money for every extra person this will allow the city of Oakland to imprison. In a country with the highest incarceration of its people in the history of the world, do you truly want to add to this growing and infamous legacy? Please think outside of this oppressive, distrusting, corrupted system that you cannot ignore exists if you know anything of systematic oppression. The DAC aids the existing power structure that serves none of us here, nor the richest of those profiting from it. Not truly. Building trust in our communities, encouraging healing from all the trauma that constantly surrounds us as a result of the colonial, controlling, divide and conquer power structure we've all been born into and told this is the way it is. Deal with it. DAC is an example of divide and conquer. It reinforces distrust and disconnection at a time on our earth that we need to come together.
Yes, thank you very much. You've gone on several minutes.
And desperately, and with the small power you hold as Oakland City Councilors, decide if you're prepared to start taking radical new approaches toward creating a healthier, happier, functional Oakland, not silently aiding a corrupt, dysfunctional system just because the federal government is handing you $7 million. That is a shameful cop-out of your responsibility as an empathetic human being. And I'm taking more time because 50 some odd people didn't get to stay up tonight, even though I'm exhausted and my body hurts and my 13-year-old dog is freaking out because it's so late. And I have other things to say, guys.
But you have spoken quite eloquently, so we got the message. Thank you.
Well, I hope you guys consider people people. I'm trying to consider you people.
Good evening. I'm Brian Geiser, District 3. I don't really think you guys are naive enough to think that this is about safety. It's about removing privacy. And you're part of the city level of this, and I'm going to go for you up the pyramid. Beyond that, we have the Alameda County Sheriff with the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Emergency Operations Center. This is the county data compiler. Above that, we have the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center. This is a fusion center. It's based in San Francisco. This is one of 5 in the state. Above that, we have the California State Threat Assessment Center. This is a federal primary fusion center. This is one of 53 across the nation. Above that, we have FEMA. There are 10 regions. We happen to be in Region 9. It's based right here in Oakland, 2 blocks down on Broadway. Above that is the Department of Homeland Security, and above that is the Military Command, United States Northern Command, which encompasses Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Back down to the city level, I'll finish real quick. You guys offered to get us involved with issues of privacy. It happened also in San Francisco. They have an analogous system over there, as many cities do across the nation. I refer you to the September 4th issue of the Bay Guardian. It's a wonderful expose about how those people were lied to over there, and they have no access to what is happening with this. It's just like our police review board. We have no control over it. So anyway, I'll let you pass this around. You can actually see what all of these things are.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I want to make just a process comment. I think part of why we're seeing such a large outpouring so late in the process of approval of the DAC is really a problem of the transparency of city government. And you have these great groups like Open Oakland that's working to make city data really digestible, and I think that, and I really commend them for doing that, and I hope that moving forward, I don't expect you to vote against the Domain Awareness Center, if I'm to be real with myself and my sense of, where your priorities lie. But I do hope that in moving forward, you will reach out to some of the community that already exists and is working really hard on making this sort of data transparent. And also, on a similar note, a reason why you have such an outpouring of people, a large reason, is that a group of citizen journalists came together and created the Domain Awareness Center Oakland Wiki article and have spent countless hours to really create what I have found to be the most in-depth resource out there on the internet on the Domain Awareness Center. I invite you all to look at it, oaklandwiki.org, look up the Domain Awareness Center. Libby Schaff, you mentioned at City Camp Oakland that you felt that your coffee hours weren't as effective as you would ideally like them to be, and I think that while Oakland Wiki may not be the ultimate answer, it is a tool that you could use to clear up any misunderstanding and put your voice out there to be heard by more people than can fit in this room on a Tuesday night at midnight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joshua Smith. I'm an Oakland resident, and I would like y'all to make sure you have your pens and pencils handy. All right, first of all, the language and terminology you're hearing in public and in the council and that goes out to the mainstream media, you'll see the definition of the Domain Awareness Center. Behind the scenes, you'll see terms like police-centric, maritime-centric. It's a hybrid of the two, but I don't believe we're hearing the terms police-centric. I currently have in my possession 4,000 pages of city emails regarding the DAC. 4,000. Okay? Previous to that, I had 400 pages of city invoices that document the entire structure of the DAC, literally down to the nuts and bolts. That was published to the world on publicintelligence.net. Now, the DAC is a fusion center by their own definitions, in their own internal emails. The media is going to get this Friday, and then it goes out on Public Intelligence next week. Now, you hear these people talking about the poor and the oppressed and the issues of the brown and black being surveilled. In concert with the DAC funding in March of 2013, HUD gave a grant of $250,000 to the Oakland Housing Authority for a surveillance system which includes cameras and recording equipment. And the Housing Authority, Oakland Housing Authority, is scheduled for integration in Phase 2, where we just received funding for a surveillance system. Next, SysAid is the IT help desk. SysAid is a company that's located in Israel. And what I want you to do next is go to the SysAid website and go to Contact Us and look at their U.S. offices. And when you see their U.S. offices, look at the address and look it up in Newton, Massachusetts, and you'll see it's a house. It's a house owned by a photographer named Mordecai Hodis. Okay? SysAid's headquarters are in Airport City in the same building as El Al Airlines. Now, on the nuclear waiver, in the RFP, SAIC reported that they assumed they were going to be given a waiver for the nuclear-free ordinance. So the questions we're going to have coming out in the media and to the world are, why did they assume that? And then within the 4,000 pages of emails that I have in my possession, it documents the attempt for the city to get this waiver done for them. Okay? Also, in these documents you'll read, and nobody knows, but these compliance records are self-reporting. And they're also self-reporting under the penalty of perjury. So what do we have here? We have that they assumed they were going to be given a waiver. We don't know why that is, but we know that it was actively being pursued by the city council. Most actively by the one person who just left. Okay, and we know the second choice is Motorola. All right? 2 seconds. So, and most importantly, do not focus on anything involved in what you're hearing or seeing about the DAC currently. You need to focus on what it can become, emerging and future technologies. And lastly, you got that right. And lastly, I want you to look something up on YouTube called Cam Over. Thank you.
President Kernahan, council members, I feel for you right now. You've been here 7+ hours, have listened to testimony about a lot of very controversial topics. So I would suggest that the reasonable thing to do would be to table this agenda item until a future date, at which time we would be able to, one, hear from the city administrator, who we didn't hear from today, about why they think this is a good idea, where we would be able to hear from perhaps the ACLU about what concerns they might have about civil liberties. This is a huge topic. It seems like it could leave one with the perception, even though this was probably not your intention, that item number 20 on a 20-item agenda that went after midnight, if you were to pass this ordinance tonight, this resolution tonight, that the perception would be that it was an attempt by you to slide this by. And I know you don't want that perception, so I would urge you to have a full hearing where this is item number 1 on the agenda, where we can hear from everybody who wants to speak to this topic. And the added benefit is Councilmember Chef gets to go home and relieve her babysitter. Thank you very much.
So that is all of the public speakers. We didn't finish reading the list.
As I understand it, only a small batch of cards were read, and many more are still here.
Okay, keep going.
Power and Privilege, Khalid Rothschild Shakur, Frank, Luther, is it Blissett? Susan Harmon, Matthew Kellegrew, Daniel Borgstein, Michael Rubin, Mark Raymond, John, Dustin, Oscar Wilde, Renata Murray, Nura Khoury, Thomas Fitzpatrick, Morrow M., Ryan Geller, Jim Phillips, Alana Green, Seymour Butts. I get this on a regular basis, so I'm going to find out. Jesse Chan and Valerie Wine-Miller. Thank you for the laugh.
All right. Anybody whose name was just called, please approach the podium.
Khalid Rothschild Shakur. SAIC personnel were instrumental in pressing the case that weapons of mass destruction existed in Iraq under Saddam Hussein, and that war was the only way to get rid of them. When no weapons of mass destruction were found, SAIC personnel staffed the commission set up to investigate how American intelligence could have been so disastrously wrong, including Gordon Oler, the commission's deputy director for review, a 25-year CIA veteran, Jeffrey R. Cooper, vice president and chief science officer for one of SAIC's subunits, and Samuel Visner, as SAIC vice president for corporate development, who had also passed through the revolving door and back to the NSA. David Kay, who later chaired the Iraq Survey Group, which showed that Hussein didn't possess weapons of mass destruction, thereby proving that the war was launched under the false pretenses, is also an SAIC shareholder and former director of SAIC's Center for Counterterrorism Technology and Analysis. I'm wondering if everyone's aware of SAIC's dark history when you pass phase 1 and going into phase 2, exactly what they're involved in, the murderous acts that they're involved in. And this is who you're going to take on to save the peace in Oakland, when all it's going to be about is what it's about. The NSA, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, CIA. You're concerned about facial recognition. They don't have to come and ask you any permission. You're pawns. They're not going to ask you anything. You don't know how to write code. You don't even know, like everyone's saying, what you're getting into. These young coders are going to tear your asses apart. They are. Because you have no idea what you're doing right now, and you're saying it's to save the citizens of the city. What it is here to do is to spy on the people of this city. Because that's what SAIC does. They're spies. That's what they do. And if you research them, you would know that. You would know. No, I'm going to continue. Who's going to man it? That's something that has been brought up as well. No one in the Oakland Police Department can be trusted. It was mentioned before with the CPRB, Derwin Longmire, and people who were involved in.
I've given you
I understand
several
that,
more minutes.
Yeah, that's cool, but I'm going to go like everybody else too.
No, please wind up.
I'll wind up. Derwin Longmire, who was involved with the murder of Chauncey Bailey, okay, tainting evidence, was fired and then rehired. And he was one of the main goons that that assaulted people on Thanksgiving at Occupy Oakland. One of the main goons who came back to OPD as muscle to abuse people. Okay, Holmgren. So who's going to staff this? Who can be trusted? No one can be trusted. And as far as censuring, I think that the first person that should be censured should be Deanna Santana, and investigate her actions, whether it be embezzlement or the waiver that she tried to introduce. And this should not go through this evening, okay? And there should be penalties, and people should have to suffer them severely. And don't take it lightly, because it's not a likely subject. And the fact that you put it last is so insulting to the community, so insulting to people that are going to be misrepresented. The way you're wearing your hat right now, the way you're wearing your hat
Shakur,
right now, Ms. Kaplan.
I have been very tolerant
You're
of
going to be
your
the people
speaking over the
that,
time. You
whatever,
need to stop
you're going to be
now.
the people that are going to come up on those surveillance cameras, how you're dressed, what you look like. It's class war in full effect.
Next speaker, please.
My name is Seymour Butts. I just want to know how we can trust a police force with such a history of blatant abuse of its own citizens to handle something as intrusive as a DAC, a police force that beat the shit out of protesters and tear gas them and flashbang them and put an Iraq war veteran in a coma. How can we trust them? How can we know that they're going to use this technology wisely? Also, I want to note that Mayor Kwan has been on Facebook all night. I see her from up there, and this guy really needs to stop playing Bejeweled. Like, really though. All right, thank you.
Next.
Zagan Kabir, Oakland resident, and I have Mark Raymond seat this time as well. I don't think I'll go over though. The Domain Awareness Center is one of the most serious attacks on our civil liberties we have ever faced in Oakland and America, for that matter. One city council member stated to me that he understood that the only other city with such an extensive surveillance center is New York City. And New York is becoming like another London, which is known for mass warrantless surveillance of its citizens. Is this the kind of world we want to live in? Is this what we want our great city to be, a mini surveillance state where the police has unlimited, unwarranted access to our movements and our whereabouts? This is not the world I want to live in. This city council was responsible for this mass intrusion of our privacy. This city council was responsible for the end of all Oakland residents' privacy. This city council is legislating away our rights, our freedom to be anonymous, our freedom to be political dissidents, our freedom to not be tracked and followed with electronic surveillance cameras and license plate readers. The city is being extremely secretive in this process, not revealing its true intentions. This is a Department of Homeland Security and OPD plan to silence dissent. No matter what their intentions are, this city council is not being our friend. If we don't stop this city council, the city council will be responsible for more future attacks on our liberty and civil rights as more police, state initiatives are brought before us. The city's friends at the Department of Homeland Security are already testing facial recognition software for surveillance cameras in public places. How long till this technology is brought to Oakland? This is a dire situation for not just Oakland, but America and the whole world. Technologies are spreading that threaten the liberty and well-being of all people, and people must do whatever it takes to stop this. These people must be stopped. All these oppressive policies, all these tools of state violence and surveillance are brought to us by people. These city council members happen to be the decision makers in this particular threat, and this is a threat. The city is threatening us. They want us to be obedient. They threaten us with police violence and surveillance, hoping it will keep us in line. Who builds these surveillance systems? They're built by defense contractors, companies that have been doing business in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Israel, helping militaries bomb and control and torture people. We cannot let these kinds of initiatives stand. We will not let them stand. We must organize, mobilize, and take direct action and let the world know that there will be consequences for politicians and corporations that attack our rights and livelihoods. I urge this body to stop this attack on my freedom before it's too late for all of us.
Okay, that sounds like all the speakers that were called. So thank you all for coming and staying so late. And so now that we've heard from the public speakers, we can have the staff provide some information about this particular proposal, which is the phase 2. Well, it's really about a new contract to do the phase 2 on the Domain Awareness Center. So council members, would you like to speak first or have Ms. Domingo present? Ms. Domingo, why don't you give just a brief statement about what this phase 2 will do and also what the Domain Awareness Center, what are its primary uses that you as the emergency response coordinator are in charge of.
Good evening, or I should say good morning, President of the Council and council members. My name is Renee Domingo, and I am with the Oakland Fire Department, Office of Emergency Services and Homeland Security. I am the Emergency Services Manager. First of all, we've completed phase 1 of the Domain Awareness Center, which is located at the City of Oakland Office of Emergency Services in our Emergency Operations Center. Just for the record and for clarification, phase 1 of the project included the foundation, building the foundation for the center, and that included the upgrade of the video wall. It included additional audio-visual capabilities, fiber optics connection between the port and the city, a build-out of the IT infrastructure such as servers to support the system, and we also integrated the City of Oakland traffic cameras, of which there are, I believe, 5 or 6. Asan will probably clarify that number. I'm not sure if it's 5 or 6. And then the Port of Oakland cameras that are along the port properties, as well as integrating our geographic information system, which is a mapping system, City of Oakland Maps. And we currently have the shot spotter alerts also available at the Emergency Operations Center. Why we're here tonight is to talk about phase 2. Originally, we came to you in July 30th, 2013, to talk about phase 2, and at that time, council approved us to move on to phase 2 with quite a few caveats. That included the privacy policy development, which we will come back and talk with you in more detail about in March. It also included us involving the ACLU, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which spoke this evening, and we have invited them to come to the table. Recently, they did respond to us this week, and we're setting up a meeting for that process. Additionally, contrary to what you've heard from our speakers tonight, we do have a public process being part of that. So we were going to meet with them, have our meetings with them, develop a draft policy, then go out to the public over a 30 to 60-day comment period of that privacy policy. So that is our goal, and that is our goal based on the City Council's directive. The other part of that is we'd also return in March or April to discuss what other partners, which you authorized us only to integrate any additional existing cameras from Caltrans, CHP, AC Transit, and BART. So we would come back with those recommendations and whether or not it's even feasible to do that. We don't even know that yet. Anyway, let me finish. Additionally, part of phase 2 now is to integrate systems. Now that we have the foundation, what we're doing is integrating the port systems into the city's systems. So what I mean by that specifically, what would be part of the scope of work for phase 2 would include the port vessel tracking system, which they have, geographic information.
Mr. Mingo, may I interrupt you for just
Sure.
a moment? I beg your pardon. Would the gentleman please sit down and do your surveillance in a less... No, you can film, but you can film from your seats. Kindly sit down. It's a very funny joke, and you can film it. Please sit down. Would you may film everything you want. No.
Madam Chair.
No, I am not. I'm just pointing out that you can film all you want while you're sitting down so that you're not in the way. Okay, children, carry on. And yes, you just go right. Yes, I did. Ms. Domingo, go ahead and talk. Ms. Domingo, please go ahead.
Okay. So part of phase 2 will include the port vessel tracking system, the port's geographic information mapping system, weather alerts, which are NOAA, USGS seismic alerts, Pacific tsunami warning systems. And let me add to that these systems are not normally systems that are found in fusion centers because we are not a fusion center. We are an emergency operations center. Additionally to that, we would be adding the Oakland Airport Marine Terminal Operator cameras, Jack London Square, which is part of the port, and the OPD helicopter, computer-aided dispatch, police and fire, and the Records Management Information System, Web EOC, which is a management software system for managing emergencies, and the truck management system that is at the port. So that would be the phase 2 system integrations. The other part of that phase 2 would include development time for development of our how we would operate the Domain Awareness Center, which includes the development of action plans for police and fire response, as well as port-related activities. So that is what the phase 2 of the DAC project is.
So, Ms. Domingo,
back to the report.
Oh, go ahead.
So that's phase 2. So what we're asking the City Council tonight is to adopt a resolution that was amended by the Public Safety Committee last Tuesday to allow staff to return to the pool of vendor respondents from October 2012, which the qualified respondents, there was a total of 5, to issue a revised RFP based on this new scope of work, which has changed since October 2012. And then we would provide them, once council approves this, we would provide this pool of respondents. By Monday, we'd issue the RFP, Monday of next week, because we have somewhat of a tight timeline. We'd give them phase 1 implementation information. We'd give them the scope of work. And then we would also provide supplemental proposal instructions and guidelines regarding due diligence safeguards in regards to a company's background, references, and additional questions would be added to our current contracting questionnaire that requires full disclosure of any and all pending actions against vendors for misconduct and or other unlawful acts, omissions, or violations over the last 10 years, so that the staff, administration, and council have all the facts related to the proposed vendor. It would be our hope to come back to you in January of 2014 to request approval of the recommended vendor. The other piece of this is that last Tuesday at the Public Safety Committee, the original resolution was amended to include language from the July 30th resolution that covered the privacy law requirements by staff. And it also removed a couple of the 2 further resolves that had already been included in the July 13th reports. So that is the informational report before you related to the resolution and the request from staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Domingo. Now on to comments and questions from the council members. Councilmember Kaplan, are you in the queue? Did you mean to be?
Thank you very much. When will responses to the new RFP be due?
Oh, the timeline. Hassan, he's been working on that.
Good morning, Hassan Baig, Department of Information Technology. I think our plan is to publish an RFP on the 25th, and we are giving 2 weeks for them to respond back.
And if we wanted, and my understanding is the recommendation as currently before us, you would release that to the pre-existing bidders. Would there be any impediment to your process if you kept the tight timeline, but allowed other bidders to bid who had not bid previously?
I think looking at the grant performance timeline and the complexity of the system and the capabilities where they have been demonstrated with the first RFP when we publish and the companies who have submitted their proposals, it is in the city's best interest that we need to go back to the same group of 5 companies and do the due diligence and select one of the companies out of those 5. But it is going to impact our schedule if you go back and publish this whole RFP right from the beginning.
But this is not the same as the first one.
No,
because a bunch of the work has already been done.
That is correct.
So what remains to be done is primarily software, not hardware?
Yes.
So it's possible that if other companies were allowed to bid, that there would be others who could do this phase, now that it's down to a smaller remaining piece.
I think the...
or at least if you kept a tight timeline, I guess you'd find out if others could do it, right? I mean, if we allowed that.
I don't know if you have any...
Well, okay, I don't need to make staff answer to that level because obviously there's a tight timeline, but I think this question of why we would need to restrict it to the previous bidders as long as someone can meet the timeline, I think is a worthwhile question. And, oh, did you want to answer that? Okay.
Deborah Barnes, Contracts and Compliance. The competitive process that was conducted for the first phase was a very thorough and detailed process that solicited responses from what appeared to be a good pool of competitors. And this round 2 then builds upon that first set of responses. So it actually would best serve the process to stay with the existing pool.
Okay, well, we may need to come back to that point. Let me just ask another technical question about the system. Are all of the cameras in public places or not?
Yes. So far, the cameras we have integrated, they're all cameras in public places.
So far, and So does the authorization that's before us, is there an interpretation that it would authorize cameras other than in public places?
No, I think Renee talked about, Councilmember Kaplan, I think when we actually start putting the phase 2, before we launch phase 2, we are going to return to council in March, April timeframe. Before the Domain Awareness Center actually goes live, we will seek your approval with the capabilities.
Okay, so the policies around the uses will be back to us at a different date. You know, and I mean, I know it's late and it's been a long, long meeting, and let me just say that I can see very valuable potential uses of cameras and bad ones, right? I mean, even the question was raised about police misconduct. Cameras could be used to catch and prosecute police misconduct. Cameras could be used to catch illegal dumping. They also could be misused in ways that are inappropriate given civil liberties and privacy expectations. And so to me, the question isn't just a camera or not a camera, it actually is the usage rules, which I recognize are not before us tonight. And I am going to be curious about this question of other vendors because of the questions that have been raised. But I'll leave that there and hear what my colleagues have to say.
Councilmember Kalb, you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Madam President. So I share many of the concerns and questions that Councilmember Kaplan, has asked and articulated, and so I don't need to repeat those, but I'm thinking about some of those very same questions, and I'm hoping that the administration will have is thinking through the possibility that if the 4 remaining proposers are conflicted out, and I realize that there's some research to be done, as you will have to do, but if they are conflicted out for the same reason the previous contractor was conflicted out, you'll need to have a backup plan post-haste, right away. So I'm sure you're thinking about that. I hope you are. Instead of repeat many of the concerns and questions that Councilmember Kaplan articulated, which I share, and I, in all honesty, I share at least some of the concerns that I heard from the speakers, and I want to acknowledge the fact that there were twice as many speakers potential speakers who weren't here because we were so late, so we should all remember that the actual crowd would have been 2 or 3 times as larger. But I did want to acknowledge one question that came up by a speaker and also came up, I think, in an email either yesterday or last week that I wanted to add to this resolution. So I'm going to propose some language to the resolution before us, which is, fortunately, it's consistent with what Ms. Domingo just articulated was going to be the public process for the creation and vetting and engagement for the privacy and data retention policy. So in the resolution before us, on the it's a 3-page resolution, on page 3, where it currently says further resolved that the 3 for the resolved sections added by the City Council Resolution 84593 at the meeting of July 30th are incorporated into this resolution. I'm adding to that sentence the following, or I'm requesting that this be added. Resolution, with the addition that the staff process for developing the privacy and data retention policy shall include public outreach and engagement with expert and community stakeholders, at least 1 public meeting, and a public comment period prior to submission of the proposed privacy and data retention policy to the Public Safety Committee and the Council for approval. It sounds like that's what you're already planning on doing, and then some, and I think we're going to make sure that happens. But I want to put that into the resolution, which it was only implied previously, and now it be stated in the resolution. And that's my proposed amendment. Is there a second for that?
Are you moving the resolution with that amendment?
Yeah, I'm moving the resolution with that amendment.
I will second that.
Okay, thank you.
Come on, somebody stop this, please. Nobody here is in favor of this, not a single person. Please.
All right, Mr. Gallo. Are you in the queue?
We've had a good deal of discussion and plenty of opportunity to ask questions from staff, and I think they've been answered, so I will support the motion. Thank you.
All right. Well, I will ask about it. The Ms. Domingo, is it the case that if you want to add new cameras to this system, that you will be coming back to council to get approval to do that?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
It is on the July 30th resolution. If you read the language, it states that we have to come back. The July 30th resolution states that we have to come back.
All right. Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you. And I was actually a little disappointed that when you put the changes in the resolution from the Public Safety Committee, I was hoping that you would actually put the 3 resolves from the July 30th resolution in their entirety into this resolution, because then people would have seen that on July 30th we created a permanent requirement that any surveillance system that is part of this must be approved in a public forum, must be approved by the City Council. And let us say that this is not over. This is not over. I continue to be very concerned about the privacy issues, but we have an opportunity to continue to explore not just the privacy issues with the DAC, and I've raised this before, but I'll repeat it. Because you have come here and you've raised these issues, it is making us look at other things. It is making us smarter and better around privacy issues, and we have plenty of ways to go. So, for example, since this discussion has started, we've created a privacy protection for the license recognition cameras that was not there before, and that's outside the scope of this project. So I want to have that conversation. I want to have the hearing about the privacy and data retention policies. The other thing that we want to clarify is, or I'll say for myself, my utter disdain for federal spending priorities. If we could use this money for social services or education, I would gladly do that. But just to be clear, that's not an option in front of us.
Okay, people, what?
So I also wanted to ask, I don't know if staff has, I have a question for staff that you'll be interested in hearing the answer to. I don't know if you have had a chance, and I'm sorry we kind of all pulled it up on our computers here on the dais, to read the article in the East Bay Express and whether or not you've had a chance to do that analysis, because it was pretty surprising to find that it appears SIAC perjured themselves in completing our forms.
We did read the article, and it is possible that what was claimed in the articles with regard to the companies is true. But it is possible. And however, the ordinance really is a very nuanced ordinance. And we need to be able to perform due diligence in order to determine adherence to the policy. So every company will have the opportunity to respond and submit their affidavits with regard to nuclear-free zone.
Okay, thank you. I encourage you to remain vigilant on that issue. And then finally, I want to speak to one of the first speakers talked about this not, in fact, you talked about this not being a truly participatory democratic process. And anybody who was with me at City Camp heard my frustration about this process, which is not a dialogue. It is not a place where we're learning from each other and exchanging information and giving you a meaningful opportunity to influence the outcome. And so we have got to do better than this. I know we can, and I am very happy with. I'm very happy with Councilmember Kolb's requirement that we're going to actually have some sit-down, publicly noticed dialogues that are in a much better atmosphere than this, because there are a lot of very smart people in this room that we can learn from. And then finally, you know, I remind people that as we look at the possibilities for the actual policy, there are many options at our disposal. For example, we can require that this center never records at all, ever. That is an option. There's one thing I just discovered is that there is a website that actually is starting to map. You'll find this interesting too. There's a website that's actually mapping where video cameras are in Oakland. Actually, it's a different Joshua Daniels, but his name happens to be Joshua Daniels. So maybe you're doing it also. This is I'm sure there's more than one. So it's a crowdsourced map. So this is an issue that we have to continue to get better at, but we're not going to do it in this venue. So I look forward to having a more productive venue for discussion and a better, truly participatory democratic process. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Schaaf. Councilmember Gibson McElhaney, you are next.
Thank you, Madam
Before you
President.
speak, I'm just going to comment on something. In addition to what Ms. Schaaf said about, you know, there are different kinds of forums for engaging in different kinds of ways, this is a representative democracy. It is, no, what I mean by that is we are elected by thousands of people, a tiny fraction of whom actually attend city council meetings. We are aware, because of email we receive, conversations we have with many people, we have many forms of input to understand where our constituents are coming from, and city council meetings are one of many. What is very clear to all of us is that the opinions that we hear in a city council meeting may or may not reflect the majority opinion of the people we represent.
Do you guys have a dictionary?
So that,
no, I'm serious. Let's have a dialogue.
Okay, so go on.
Do we have a dialogue?
That is all I'm going to say about that. Ms. McElhaney, would you like to address the
issue? We can
issue?
actually talk on legal terms and understand
So,
where we're coming from.
thank you, Madam President.
No,
I had a
I
couple
got
of
all
questions
night,
for.
and actually, I know how to stay up late at night. It's how I do my research and learn and dedicate time. You could table it. That's a choice. Table it. So you could think about, maybe doing it with a later date, but more important, people talking to you. Table it. 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 Table it.
Move the item. Move the item. Move the item. Is there a second?
All right.
It's already been moved. Are you calling the question?
Call for the question.
People willing to call the question?
I'm going to call the question. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, council members, I am calling the question. All those in favor of the motion, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hands.
Aye.
Are you all those in favor of, all those opposed to the motion? I see one a no, which is Ms. McElhaney. Are there any abstentions? There are no abstentions. There are 6 ayes. There is 1 no. The item passes. We are now going to go on to other items on the agenda.
We have one more item on the agenda.
I'd like to second Councilmember Gallo's motion on item 11. I'd like to second Councilmember Gallo's motion for item 11, which you authored.
Second that.
Yeah, I'm seconding his motion. I'm sorry, we have to let the clerk read the title.
So, Ms. Kaplan, did you move item on the censure procedure?
I'm sorry, I seconded his motion, but I think that we needed to let the clerk read it.
Ms. Brooks, what
I
did
have
you
a
say?
question about this item.
No. With respect to...
Can we clear the room so we can finish the agenda?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. We need to clear the room so we can finish the agenda.
But what other item remains?
Okay, we're clearing the room. The item is over. Okay, council members, if you can hear me, I'm going to call a recess and clear the room.
Madam, we call for adjournment.
Pardon me?
Call for the adjournment of the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Yeah, but hold on. Wait.
Adjournment. Call to adjourn the meeting.
I'm calling for a recess.
Let's just do a recess.
Council members, we're just going to adjourn the meeting. The other two items can go that, you know? You want to? Just let them go while we sit here. Just wait here. Can we wait?
I think they're going to come get us.
Please, we're going to stay.
Oh, damn.
Council members, the officers are going to clear the room.
Can we clear the room, please?
This is what happens when you don't have real democracy. And we're trying to tell you that. Design a system that is interactive and real. Not this phony bullcrap with the elite running the show.
We're saying you midnight, better go through.
No, I can leave this because of the audit.
Council members, we're going back to the City Council censure policy. It's item 11.
Item 11 is a discussion and possible action on the policy and procedure to provide the mechanism by which the City Council, acting as a whole, can discipline any of its members who violate state or federal laws, city ordinances, or policies. We have one speaker on the item.